In his review of this film about Saint Maria Goretti, Andre Bazin writes, the film is essentially saying, this is Maria Goretti, watch her live and die. On the other hand, you know she is a saint. Let those who have eyes to see read by transparence the evidence of grace in her life, just as you must do at every moment in the events of your own lives. And so I think this gets at really like gets at the heart of the challenge of like making a film about a saint, which is that in reality, like in our lives around us, you know, no one is walking around with a canonization, and to tell a film about a person's life, you know, there is nothing to indicate. Well, there may be extraordinary events, miracles, and things like that. We have, you know, that's something that has to obviously be considered on a case by case basis. But really, if we look at saints like Saint Therese, who, as far as I'm aware, she wasn't like a walking miracle manifester like other saints are. Everything that we know about her saintliness really comes from Story of a Soul and from realizing, oh, this is what was going on. Like when the sisters finally read her diary and they're like, oh, we knew she was holy, but this is what was going on. You know, it's not like they didn't know she was a saint. She was a saint. But there was no, you know, there was no halo. There was no, it's like ultimately it's an act of faith. Like ultimately you have to treat it like the works, the acts of God in your life in front of you, where, you know, it requires an act of faith. And a cinema that approaches it in that way, at least what Bazin is arguing, and I would agree with him, is like that the most honest way of approaching this is to treat the story of a saint in this manner, where you have to let the transparency of grace really, it's something that you have to accept kind of on faith. And I think that's something that A Hidden Life does do well. There's a whole other argument for that. I think there's aspects of that in Therese. I think the strengths of the film is that it leaves room for that. And the beauty of the performance is a particular vehicle of that. But as a whole, the film is kind of so opposed to, well, I won't go there anyway. As a whole, it's not, no, anyway, I'm losing it. Basically, the ordinariness, like if we really want to look into like a film that captures the ordinariness of experience, of reality, and then applies that to a saint, it's the best films about saints are going to be the ones that accept that aspect of like the mundanity, the ordinary, but also they can't shy away from what really happened to that saint, you know? So that's the thing. I think, you know, we can't say that you have to like remove miracles and things that are associated as part of an actual saint's story. You have to accept all of it. Right. But the fact is, for the majority of saints, like it's going to be pretty...
the majority of the time, of any saint, you know, is going to be filled with mundane life experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, our Lord was in A Hidden Life for 30 years, you know?
Yeah.
No voiceover.
And so I would say, like, until we as a church and as filmmakers and artists and anyone involved with the dramatic arts in the church, like really kind of embrace that aspect of the hidden life of our Lord, as kind of the driving engine of how we approach arts of the real, you know, and especially lives of saints. I think we're just going to keep we're going to keep doing that cycle of where we end up with like plaster saint type sentimentality, and then the reaction to that, which a film like Therese is kind of part of, you know, where it's taking things way back on the other side, getting away from sentimentality and getting over into kind of this abstract modern
brutalist.
Brutalist.
Brechtian. Well, I keep wanting to say Brechtian. I keep waiting for you to pick up on that, James, because you're the theater guy. But
no, I dig it. You know, I wouldn't necessarily describe this film as Brechtian, but there's certainly elements of it.
There's one more thing I want to say. I guess we're very much at the end. So, and this is for me, rewatching this, I was struck by something that has struck me by a lot of films that deal with religious character, sisters and brothers, in particular. And I think this is maybe one of the single biggest issues with, the way the modern West tackles saint stories, which is that the role of the Eucharist is completely non-existent.
Yeah.
And I find this, it's not only, and you can see this also in A Hidden Life. You can see this in Therese.
Yes.
You can see this in just about any film in the last 60 years or even longer made about a Catholic saint. The
You
Eucharist.
see personal prayers by the bedside. You almost never see much
You see
ritual.
that, or you see, as we see in this film, she's praying before an image of the Sacred Heart, of our Lord and the Sacred Heart. But it's like she lives in a convent. She has a chapel. Like, she would have been in adoration every day.
Yeah.
Anyone who's living a normal Catholic life, like, knows what it's like just to pop in to the church or whatever. Like, even if it's only like once a week or once, whatever, you know, like the aspect of the Eucharistic devotion is completely missing from most cinematic depictions of saints. And this to me is the single biggest tell of like what is really going on here. What is this really about? Because when religious devotion is depicted, it's with highly symbolized images, like something like the Sacred Heart or images of Our Lady or whatever. But it's not meant to really bring you into that moment of devotion or even to understand their devotion. It's really just to say, like, this person is devoted. You know, it's operating with their faith on us. It's symbolizing their faith, you know. And so that to me is the biggest kind of flaw with this kind of approach is the embodied, the lived reality of our faith in the Eucharist is completely missing. And any story of a saint that doesn't have that is missing something absolutely critical about that saint. As moving as it is to see all the other aspects, all the other virtues, all the other good things that are part of that story. Yeah. This to me always stands out, and I just can't really get over it.
You talked about that a lot with A Hidden Life, not so much about about going to mass, about his personal devotions.
We didn't cover that on this podcast. This was our first film discussion over on the Catholic Culture podcast. Yeah. Perhaps someday
I'll probably publish it in this feed sometime.
Yeah, when we need a stopgap.
Yeah.
But
okay.
You know, thanks, Nathan, for all of that. I think that was all very well put, and it certainly gives us a lot to think about going into the many other saint films that are on the Vatican film list.